John.
Good morning, everyone.
Oh, Oz.
Good morning, Oz.
How you all doing?
Good.
Good.
Okay, we are live.
Thanks for all the information you've been sending out, Pam.
No problem. Hopefully it wasn't too overwhelming with just a lot of numbers.
Did you send out a late email yesterday?
I did.
Yes.
What was in that?
That was the May reports,
No, I
May
mean
financial
something else.
reports.
No,
I'm sorry?
pertaining to this meeting.
Mhm.
Pertaining to the meeting.
No.
There's something about agenda on it.
Oh, no, that was just the automatic. You must be signed up for the automatic.
Yeah, okay.
Things that go
Notify
out.
me, right,
Yeah.
reminder of the meeting.
Okay,
Put the link to this YouTube so people can watch it live or go back and watch it recorded. Sue, you're muted.
Good morning.
So I'm still muted.
Good morning.
Morning.
Okay. Okay, you can hear me now, right?
Yes, much better.
Yes.
Good morning again, everyone. It is Friday, June 19th, 8 a.m. I would like to call this Town and Country Ways and Means Commission meeting to order. And would Mr. Shelton, could you please call the roll?
Sure. Ms. Weber?
She's on mute, it looks like.
Yes. I saw her husband maybe getting her set.
Randy's present. Mr. Aiken?
Present.
Mr. Conrad?
present.
Mr. Goldberg?
Present.
Mr. Frederickson?
I'm here.
Mr. Wichlinski?
Here.
Mr. Prost?
Bob said he will be joining us late.
Okay. Mr. Roberts?
Present.
Okay. And Mr. Perot? I see somebody on a phone. Is that Bob? Is that Jeff?
John Dalton.
Oh, okay, Mayor. And Mayor
Good
Dalton is
morning.
present? Morning.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor.
Madam Chair, you have a quorum.
Thank you. Welcome everyone again. And we have first on the agenda, the presentation of our 2019 Comprehensive Annual Financial Report. And I see Christina on. So let's proceed with that.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name is Christina Jaquin. We met previously. I'm the manager from Showalter and Jaboria that was in charge of the city's audit. We performed an audit of the city's financial statements for the year ended December 31st, 2019. On page 1 of the Comprehensive Annual Financial Report, known as the CAFR, you will find our independent auditor's report on the city's financial statements. In our report, we give our auditor's opinion on the financial statements. And in our opinion, the financial statements of the City of Town and Country are fairly presented in all material respects in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles. Significant events that occur after the city's year end, but before the financial statements are issued, are known as subsequent events, and professional standards require them to be disclosed in financial statements. Due to the significant local, national, and global impact of the COVID-19 pandemic, we have included an emphasis of matter paragraph that refers the readers to footnote 12, which discusses the pandemic. The inclusion of this matter does not change our opinion in any way. Under the GASB 34 reporting model, there are two sets of financial statements, the fund financial statements and the government-wide financial statements. The fund financial statements begin on page 25 of the CAFR and are prepared on the modified accrual basis of accounting using a current resources measurement focus. This means that fund financial statements focus on primarily financial resources and do not measure long-term assets and liabilities. Fund financial statements are prepared using a major fund concept. So all major funds of the city are shown in separate discrete columns. The city's major governmental funds are the general, road, capital improvements, and parks and stormwater funds. All other non-major funds are grouped together and are shown together in a separate column. In the section called Other Supplementary Information, beginning on page 57, combining schedules of the non-major funds are presented. And the city's non-major funds are the Police Training Fund and the Public Art Fund. In addition to these fund financial statements, the city statements also include government-wide statements. The government-wide statements consist of the statement of net position, which can be found on page 23, and the statement of activities, which can be found on page 24. The statement of net position presents the financial condition of the city as a whole and is prepared using the full accrual basis of accounting. This means that all assets and liabilities of the city are included.
Christina, could I interrupt? There's something really squeaky. I wondered if, Morgan?
Yeah, Randy, it seems like there's some weird feedback coming from your microphone. So if you're wondering why you keep getting muted, it's because I'm muting you because we're getting some weird scratchy noises coming from your end.
Oh, maybe she's muted and can't hear that. Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt, but
That's okay.
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 All right, go ahead.
Okay.
Thank
Mr. Chairman,
So the statement of
I joined. This is Jeff. I just joined.
Okay, thank you. Okay, go ahead.
No, Rob, technology, right? The statement of net position presents the financial condition of the city as a whole and is prepared using the full accrual basis of accounting. This means that all assets and liabilities of the city are included. Therefore, capital assets, capital lease obligations, and liabilities for pension and other post-employment benefits are reported. This presentation is similar to that of a for-profit business. The statement of activities presents direct expense and program revenue for each function of the city's activities. The net amount shows the extent to which each function is either self-financing or draws from the general revenues of the city. This statement is also prepared on the full accrual basis of accounting. Because of the differences in the basis of accounting used in the governmental fund financial statements and the government-wide financial statements, there are reconciliations provided that reconcile the total fund balance of the governmental funds to the total net position of governmental activities. As mentioned earlier, some examples of the differences between these statements are the net cost of capital assets and the debt of the city. All differences are listed on page 26. A reconciliation is also provided of the change in governmental fund balances to the change in net position of governmental activities. An example of these differences could be the cost of capital assets. On the fund statements, purchases are recorded as expenditures, and on the government-wide statements, the cost is capitalized and depreciated over the asset's useful life. These differences are listed on page 28. Also included in the report is the management's discussion and analysis. This is where the finance department provides an overview and analysis of the city's financial activities for the year. This can be found beginning on page 4. For the year ended December 31st, 2019, the city's governmental funds ended with total fund balance of approximately $12 million, which is a decrease of approximately $600,000 from the prior year. The unassigned total governmental fund balance at year end was approximately $8.3 million, all in the general fund. This unassigned fund balance is about 81% of general fund expenditures. The total net position of the city at December 31st, 2019 is approximately $51 million, a decrease of approximately $620,000 over the prior year. An unrestricted net position at year end was approximately $6 million. Finally, I would like to point out that the finance department had the initiative again this year to prepare a comprehensive annual financial report. This report goes above and beyond what is required. The contents of this report conform to the highest standards for preparing governmental financial statements. The purpose of the CAFR is to give the Ways and Means Commission, the Board of Aldermen, administration, and the citizens of town and country a clear and concise picture of the city's financial condition to enhance accountability to the public. We would like to commend the city for all the effort that went into the preparation of this document. In addition to financial statements, we have also issued a report on internal control related matters and advisory comments where we give suggestions for improving internal control and operating efficiency. We identified one deficiency that we consider to be a significant deficiency in internal control. The city has an efficient workforce and operates with a small staff. Although the size of the city staff prohibits complete adherence to the concept of segregation of duties, the city has implemented a system of monitoring controls over key processes. We commend the city for placing an emphasis on the importance of internal control. We recommend the city review current users' rights within the city's financial system and evaluate if there are any further improvements that can be made to internal controls. We also recommend that the monthly bank reconciliations be reviewed by someone independent of their preparation. In addition to these items required to be reported, we have also made additional suggestions for improvement for management and the board to consider. Finally, we have issued a report titled Reports to the Board of Aldermen. These are required communications by the auditor to those charged with governance at the conclusion of an audit. And finally, I would like to thank Mr. Shelton, Ms. Wright, and their staff for the many courtesies extended to us during our audit. And at this time, I would be happy to answer any questions that the commission may have.
Okay, I don't see anyone. Oh, Oz?
I got a question. I got two questions.
Okay.
This is just a curiosity. I noticed, this is on page 19, that the amount reported capitalized as land is up 16%. And it's almost $2.3 million. Was that one? Yeah. And I'm wondering, is that because we had 2.2 million hung up in construction work in progress as a result of Town Square in the prior year?
That's exactly it, Oz. We took the work in progress amount that has been building up over the last couple of years. And since we capitalized the project in 19, we went through and split out those expenses that were for the land improvements, which add to the land value.
Okay, that's kind of what I thought. The other question has to do with, I was really kind of shocked when I read what I'll call the management letter. What do you all call it? It's a report on internal.
Report on internal control, yeah.
I was kind of shocked when I saw all those items, especially the significance of some of them, and then the comments that you make about, well, the first one is a significant weakness. Is that what you call it?
Professional standards define it to be a significant deficiency. So that's the terminology that is used.
Okay, I understand it. How long has this been with us, Pam? This has been around for quite a while, hasn't it?
Well,
This significant
there's been
has been around for a while. I mean, more than just this audit. It's been around in prior audits. And I think, and I just want to make this comment, you can correct me if I'm wrong, John Dalton or somebody else. Didn't we at one time have a discussion on this committee about how this committee should function sort of as an audit committee? And there was a discussion about should that be included in ordinance? And I'm not saying it should be, but it just never was. So is that one of our responsibilities to function sort of as an audit committee for the city? Because if we don't do it, who will? Hello?
I don't see anyone responding.
Okay, well, with respect to some of these issues, I personally don't care about the Public Art Fund. But some of these other ones are in my opinion, fairly heavy. And getting back to my original question, has that first one, that significant weakness or whatever you call it, have we had this for a while?
We
Is it
have,
just one?
and part of it was addressed last year in the prior audit where our prior auditors recommended some changes. You know, it's all related to the fact that we really there's only two of us in the function, and trying to have that oversight is always tough, because Marion will do something and I'll review it. I'll do something, she'll review it, and it's just kind of circular. So last year we added some more review on our credit cards. This year, the suggestion was adding a little bit more review on the bank reconciliations and things like the setting up new vendors. So we have done that now, because before I was the only one doing the bank reconciliation. I would do it, approve it, and nobody else really looked at it, except for the auditors at the end of the year. So now Bob, Mr. Shelton reviews those when I'm finished with them. And we're setting up a new vendor form. So instead of just us entering a new vendor into the system, we'll have a form that the department will request a new vendor, and then I will review it. Mr. Shelton will review it, and then it'll get entered. So just trying to find a way to have a little bit more oversight over the functions that we're doing.
Okay, so in 2020, based on the review of 2018, you have started to address those comments, which then when we get the 2020 report in 2021, we would have identified the actions taken. Is that
Actually,
Right.
make sense?
I don't mean to interrupt, Sue, but I was going to make the recommendation that because of the significance of certain of these recommendations, that within 6 months, we have another review just within our own committee with the management of the city of these individual items and what progress has been made, et cetera.
Okay.
Oz,
so
this is Bob Shelton. I don't have any concern, and I'm sure Pam doesn't have any concern reporting back to the full Ways and Means Committee in 6 months and making that an agenda item. I think Pam's response to these audit concerns is very accurate and succinct, and is a definite action plan that we have already begun to take. So if the committee hasn't had a chance to review this response to the audit deficiencies, I think that's an excellent step. And that is our game plan. And again, we've already begun.
I agree, Bob. I think Pam's done a wonderful job in the response. I just thought, see, I have a real problem discussing this subject in a meeting such as this.
Yeah.
Okay. I would much rather discuss this subject in a face-to-face meeting in a conference room, et cetera. Okay. So that's why one of the reasons I'm recommending that we look at it again in 6 months. And it's kind of like a follow-up to what Sue said. I'm not going to wait till 2020, the 2020 audit to discuss these matters. That's
okay. All right. So we'll have that on agenda. Did you made a motion? Did you make a motion, or were you just making a recommendation?
Well, I don't know whether do we make a motion at this point? I can make a motion.
Bob,
Madam
what do you?
Chair, this is John Dalton. I think Oz raises an excellent point. I think it's good corporate hygiene, and it sounds like our staff is ready, willing, and able to comply with that. So I would make a motion to that effect.
Thank you, sir. Do we have a second?
I'll second.
So we have a motion and second. to review this 6 months' time officially within Ways and Means. All those in favor, please notify, either say aye or wave.
Aye.
Those in favor,
I,
opposed? Okay, and we will move on and we will circle back and thank you. Oz, that's a good thing, and thank you, Mayor, for weighing in on that. Okay, so any other comments for Christine? I don't see, I'm looking both screens, I don't see any. Okay, well, then we will move on. Thank you, Christine, well done. And
Thank
if
you.
we have further communications, those will happen.
Absolutely. Thank you, everyone. Have a great morning.
Thank you.
thank you.
Thanks, Christina.
Thank you.
Okay, let's go to the approval of the May 6th minutes. Have you all had a chance to review those? Do we have any additions or corrections to those minutes?
Just a question about where was Mike Goldberg? Was he there or not?
This
At the meeting.
says he was absent.
Well, but at the end, he says he approved the, where is that? At the very last paragraph.
The
It
map
does
was
say
there.
that
That's
for
a
the
different.
adjournment. Okay, then, thank you, Mr.
Mike,
Conrad.
were you there?
I was there.
Okay,
That's what I thought. I thought you were there.
thank you. Maybe we had had the minutes before, but, and I had mentioned to Mr. Shelton, I like this structure of the format, so in switching those over, that could have happened. So we have that correction. Michael Goldberg was present on the May 6th meeting. Any other corrections, additions?
I'd just
Okay,
like to make a comment. I thought these minutes were very well written. One of the most well-written sets we've had in a while.
Very good. I did too. I agree. Okay, any motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
We have the motion. We have a second. All those in favor, please identify by saying aye.
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 Opposed? And minutes are approved. Okay. We're moving to the update on revenue and expenses. And we have I think we have a document that Pam has created. So you want to go ahead with that, Pam, please?
Sure. I updated the revenue estimates. The expenditures really haven't changed. What we're recommending that what expenses be put on hold. The biggest change came with looking at the sales tax revenue that we received the beginning of June, which would actually be for sales tax collected through the end of April. So with that data, I made some changes to the estimate. At least at this point, to me, the sales tax is coming in a little bit stronger than what we had originally predicted. Now that doesn't mean by any means that things are good, obviously. So we're still looking at in the general fund, I'm going to say worst case scenario down about 1.8 million in sales tax. I looked through our other kind of major revenue sources and made some estimates that I also have on that sheet with gross receipts, permits, business licenses. I'm still optimistic about. They have been coming in. They've been coming in slower. Part of that, I believe, is related to the fact that the state has postponed their year when their licenses are expiring for 2 months. And of course, a lot of our businesses are just getting back kind of in the office and getting going again. So even though the licenses were due the end of May, we're still seeing quite a bit of revenue coming in June. So we definitely have had some businesses that have notified us that they will not be reopening. Most of those are smaller. We have just recently one business who let us know that they were moving from Town and Country to Chesterfield. And that was a little bit more significant. I think they pay about $4,000 a year. But I think that we'll know better next month. But I think the business licenses are more delayed rather than businesses just not going to be paying. So we'll see about that. The Muni Court fees are down. They just had their second court last night. So a lot of the people don't pay their fines until after they actually have a court date. So we haven't gotten very much revenue in on the court fees in the past 2 months. But I think, again, that some of that may just be a delay. But we definitely have a lower number of citations. So I am predicting that revenue will be down. And of course, interest revenue has just dropped practically off the face of the earth here. But for our overnights, we went from about 1.5% that we were getting in January. This morning I looked at it and it was 0.04%. Now we still have our other investments. The higher yielding investments that we have are beginning to drop off. So that will also reduce that revenue a little bit. With that, for the end of 2020 anyway, I think we're going to have a fund balance go down to about 6 million, which is just about 800,000 over what our required reserves. So we're going to hit the end of the year, I think, at least, with what I'm projecting at the moment, with about a 53% coverage of our expenditures, where we need to have the 50%. That's going to give us quite a challenge for the 2021 budget, which is on our agenda also to talk a little bit about, and 22 and 23. If we don't have a new source of revenue or make some other fairly radical cuts within the next couple years, by 2024, I think that's what the date was. There's a little graph at the end of your packet there. 2023, actually, we're going to be hitting that 50% mark. And that's being very conservative on expenditure increases over the next few years. So any questions?
I have a couple.
Go ahead.
There's a little, I'm just curious, on this analysis you sent us, there's a footnote with an asterisk, but I can't find the asterisk anywhere on the page except at the footnote that says only 100,000 was budgeted for Maryville. What is that?
That relates
What's
to
that all about?
the permits, and somehow my asterisk did get moved. It went from, it should have been up there by permits, and somehow it's down. Oh yeah, it's still there, where it says
Sure.
potential loss, revenue loss for
Oh, there it is.
permits
I'm sorry.
budgeted.
Okay.
So we had talked about the loss that we were, we had anticipated 250,000 from the Maryville development, and that has been delayed. And I had that in the last projection at 250. when I went back and actually looked at our budget projections, we had only projected 100,000 for that. So, so I reduced the potential loss there. I reduced a loss. That's a little bit, but anyway, that's what that related to. If you remember
sorry.
back from the other estimate, I had 250,000 in there.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I didn't see it till you pointed it out. Okay. One other question on this capital improvements fund, the encumbrance amount that you show there, that relates principally to Town Square, doesn't it? The 320,000.
Yes,
And we still owe that money,
yes.
and that will be, and we haven't got to the Town Square analysis yet, but I'll ask the question now. That amount of money that we owe Brinkman, was that included in that Town Square analysis as an expenditure? Or once it's paid, it will be included as an expenditure?
Yes, it's not an expenditure until we actually pay it. So that's why it's highlighted at the bottom of the page. It shows that encumbrance on there.
Yeah.
Morgan,
Morgan?
Yes, Ms. Weber has her electronic hand raised. Would you
Oh,
like
great.
to unmute her?
Okay, Randy? There you are. She is still muted. There you are, Randy.
I noticed in the, this is from PM, when I was showing the grocery totals, the percentages, I was curious, because I would think that would be booming items, but it was 24.3%, only 9.1%. And I was curious, when you have Instacart filling orders at Schnucks or Amazon filling orders at Costco, are we still thinking of being to have sales tax revenue from those kind of situations? Because I noticed when I did stores, there's really not a lot of people anymore in the stores. There's these merchants, like Instacart or Shipt or whatnot. A lot of them fill in orders nowadays, which that trend might continue out. So where does that transpire? Do you get sales tax revenue off the Instacart order?
Okay, that was pretty scratchy. Could you get that question understood, Pam?
if the question is, do we get the sales tax when somebody does an Instacart type order from the grocery? Is that the question? Okay. And I believe we do. Now I will have to see how I can confirm that, but since it's actually coming from our, the stores, the brick and mortar stores, and they certainly do add the tax to those because that's how I've been shopping, is through Instacart. I will have to see if I can find out for sure if we're getting that, but it seems to me that we should if we're not.
Wouldn't it be like, going there and using your credit card and,
That's what I'm
leaving
assuming.
and having the
Yeah.
same, scenario. Okay.
Yeah,
They definitely charge tax, that's for sure.
right.
Okay, I don't see any other questions. I'm trying to scroll back and forth because I have two screens here.
I
Okay.
have a question.
Madam,
Yes, please.
Sue, when do we normally begin the budget process?
About mid-July.
So I think we should be looking at, not only the budget for next year, but the remaining budget for this year.
Oh, yeah.
We're getting close to this reserve limit. Anything we can do this year would certainly help us.
And
We have, go ahead, Pam,
I'm sorry, didn't mean to jump
No,
in there.
please.
We do have, we've gone through a couple iterations of going through our 2020 line item budget and making cuts. We do have a line on that page. I know it doesn't seem like much in the general fund, but we've identified $136,000 of expenses that we're just not going to do this year in trying to save, part of the fund balance. And we're really scrutinizing every expenditure that comes before us to see if it can be postponed, to see if we can just do without it. So a lot of things have been cut out of this year's budget.
Can you give us an example? Is there anything big? I don't care about small stuff.
Sure.
Anything-
Well, we have, obviously, we had the vacancy savings in the police department, where we had a vacancy from the beginning of the year that we just recently filled. I think it was, well, actually, he started Tuesday. So that saved us, let's see if I can find the dollar amount. That saved us about $22,000. And the fact that he came in at a lower salary than the person leaving. So that was a bigger one. We have several board members who have requested that they don't get paid for the rest of the year, and the mayor.
On the mayor.
So that's the savings. And of course, we've cut out all of the conferences, specific kind of trainings that we can cut. Now, obviously, there is some police training that has to be done, but all the conferences and a good portion of the training has been cut. Let's see, public hearing meetings. We eliminated the court reporter unless it's critical. The codifications, we're only going to do one codification change this year. Of course, a lot of little things, office supplies, printing.
Yeah.
The newsletter is a big one. We've cut out the paper newsletter for the rest of the year, so everything is going to come out electronically. And that saved us a significant, about $15,000.
Did we cut out fire and ice? I'm not suggesting we do. Did we cut it out?
We did, yeah.
Did we?
Wow. Overtime, so we're not paying overtime except in the police department. If anybody has to work, then it's just going to be comp time.
There were,
go ahead.
There were items delayed, but certainly the information is a lot of things that have been eliminated or going back to previous years' budgets. And as we move forward, I mean, I've talked to people, and it's not going to be an easy scenario. And again, I think I've said this before, I'm so appreciative of those who came before, the mayor and leadership, and the fact that we can, I mean, this is a hard discussion to have, but we're better off than a lot of people, but I look forward, and it maybe won't be fun, but within this new budget, how we get back on where we're comfortable. Again, we had the reserves, unfortunately, had is the operative word, but we just will start moving forward. And once we're stabilized, I'm hoping that we'll be building those reserves back up, because we're only where we are because those before us were very fiscally careful, and I know we had probably much better revenues than what we have, but it's going to be a challenge, but it can be done.
Madam Chair,
Yes, Mayor, please.
I think your comments and all of the observations by the committee are very productive and very accurate. I am involved in the Metro Mayors Organization, and every week or two, we all get together as mayors and talk about circumstances in our towns and best practices and ways we can share information, collaborate, and so on and so forth. And because, as to your point, because of the prior planning of this commission and the people that serve this city, most notably our professional staff, we are blessed in a terrible set of circumstances. There are cities that are considering bankruptcy. There are cities that are cut to the bone and that have exhausted their reserves. There are cities that are laid off, furloughed, or had significant salary reductions in staff. We've had none of that. And we are still, what we're worried about is what we should be worried about, and that's that we are approaching our required reserve rate. There aren't many cities around that have the requirement that we keep a half of the year's annual operating budget on reserve. We know that to be the case because our Government Accounting Finance Officers Association says that the ideal reserve requirement is 17%. Ours is 50%. So yes, we are in terrible circumstances. We are very concerned, and we should be, but we also should recognize the very fortunate position we're also in to get us through these tough times. And in your closing remarks about when we get through this, and we will get through this, that the economy reopens and we start building those reserves up. We need to continue to be vigilant. We need to continue to be conservative in our expenditures until those reserves are built back up. But we got to remember where we are and take some solace and appreciation in that.
Thank you, Mayor. And again, I'd like to remind everyone of our commission and anyone listening, currently no one pays taxes to the city of Town and Country. And so we are very blessed. You know, there's work to be done and discussions to be had. And again, I think the big challenge we're going to have for the rest of the year will be the work that we do for the upcoming West County contract. So there's still much to be done.
Madam Chair, you have a hand raised from Jeff Perot, and I think you may
Okay.
have a question from Randy Weber as well.
Okay, thank you. Jeff, go ahead.
Thank you for the comments. Those are wonderful. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe the reserve exists for situations exactly like this. So it's functioning exactly as designed, and the fact that we're still above 50% is remarkable and definitely attests to the pre-planning and the staff. And so if we have to dip slightly below 50%, I'm not concerned, because I know that based on historical trends that we'll rebuild that after the tough times are behind us. But it's wonderful to see things working exactly as that were designed. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeff. Randy, you had another question? Okay. Okay.
I hope you know, sorry about the technicality here, but you know, I realize Pam's making cutbacks. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. There's a concern I have, and I've talked to and to Bob Shelton about it. Like with body cams, the police purchase body cams through a grant, but they can't implement them because there was a surprise cost of $20,000 for storage. So that is trying to be figured out, but in the meantime, it's put on hold because of all this cutbacks from the budget. Where I personally think it's something that's pretty serious and that we need. And I'm just trying to bring that forward. I know we're cutting back in the budget, but it's almost something that town and country really needs given the time. And I just wanted to say that. The police need to be ordering these body cams and they need to be usable. And the product might be under a warranty and we can't be using the warranty because they're not learning it right now. So because there's not enough money apparently to store the film off these body cams.
Okay, thank you. I didn't get all that. Did you have was that just a question or a comment, Randy, or did you have a question in there? Because I couldn't understand it all. And she's off, so.
So Madam Chair, I can just comment real quick
Yeah.
because she did discuss with me. The police department has, through a grant, obtained the body cameras. They tested a variety. We're working with other municipalities. After getting through the process of obtaining the equipment, the provider indicated there would be an extensive fee for the storage. So we're looking at storage options before we would bring that back as a budgeted item.
Okay, any further, oh, Mr. Conrad?
What are the estimated costs of that storage, Bob?
I don't recall, Oz, it seems like it was $18,000 annual fee.
So if we were going to go to body cams, which I guess we're gonna have to, but then we should plan on spending another $18,000. Is that correct?
That would be a budget process for next year.
Okay. Two other questions and then I'll quit. I enjoyed the discussion about the reserves, and it brings to mind a conversation that I had with Pam the other day, because I was sitting around thinking about how this reserve thing works and what happens if we go over 50, go under 50%. And what are the mechanics and how do we operate and what has to happen and blah, blah, blah. So I would like to have a discussion about that at a later date. In other words, if we're going to be under 50%, we need to know what that means to us from an operating standpoint. The other thing is, another question. One of my favorite subjects, does the reduction in expenditures in the road fund, does that include deer?
Well, the deer management is already complete for this year. So
But I'm talking about for 2020.
yeah, for 2020.
Okay, so we're okay for 2020.
Yeah.
It'll be an item for 2021 then in the budget. Okay, good, thank you. But I would like to have that discussion regarding the how the reserve works. So in that regard, I would like to see a copy of the ordinance or the municipal code segment that discusses the reserve.
Okay.
And so I think we should bring this up at a future meeting, and we should all have a copy of that in front of us.
Good point.
Madam Chair, can I add to that?
Please, Mayor.
I completely agree with Oz on this point, and it is the jurisdiction and responsibility of this commission to make policy recommendations for the board's consideration. The way it works is that in order to expend funds that would bring us below our required reserve, and remember when we many years ago, before I was in office, we did not have a reserve requirement. Then the Finance Commission, actually when I chaired it, installed one at 25%. And then when a bill passed the legislature that limited the city's ability to increase its property tax levy rate, and we do have a property tax levy rate. It happens to be set at 0, but it does exist. You cannot raise it in an assessment year. So the commission, the Finance Commission, now Ways and Means, said, well, then we ought to, if we can't raise it every year, we ought to increase our required reserve, and very wisely did so. That's how we got from 0 required reserve to 25% to now 50%. We're in good place because of it, as another commission member commented, Jeff. So I think, as Oz is suggesting, that this commission ought to consider the requirement right now, which is to go below the 50%. It requires a supermajority vote of the Board of Aldermen to approve those expenditures. That's a reactive ordinance. I think it would be good to have this commission take a look at what should we do in advance of that, given the anticipation that we're getting close to that reserve requirement, and put in other safeguards and other procedures, guardrails, if you will, that would serve the city well and the staff that would function under it, so that people can do some advanced planning when we anticipate approaching our required reserve requirement. We've never been here before, and so this is uncharted territory, and I think it would serve us well to have that sort of advanced planning in place. And I would make a motion to the effect of that, under your leadership, Madam Chair, that we examine this issue, as Oz says, the current ordinance, and consider any additional planning mechanisms that should be incorporated into our ordinances when the Finance Commission, when the Ways and Means Commission anticipates that we could be in that set of circumstances.
Thank you, Mayor. That was a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you. And I totally agree. I think the word reactive, which it's very accurate, and wherever we can, and we have been proactive prior to this, having our reserves. Pam and I had talked, or maybe Bob and I had talked about a next meeting, but how about if we circle back and considering all these discussions we've had, as we move forward, we can come up with some information to share, and then have some of those discussions. So did we vote?
We're in a very good place in very difficult circumstances because of advanced planning, and I think the essence of this motion, and again, it was Oz's comment that got us there, would keep us in that sort of a forward-thinking role.
Okay, and we have not voted on that. So I believe the motion was made and seconded, and all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, and the motion carries. So we will start that process and identify time to start those discussions. Yes, Bob.
I would like to talk for just a minute. Thank whoever put together the chart on the last page. I find that chart very helpful. But I also want to make sure that I don't misinterpret it. I think it's projecting that we would hit the 50% in 2023, if I'm interpreting that correctly. But I also, it's not clear to me whether those revenue projections are utilizing the intermediate case numbers, or the worst case numbers, or the best case numbers. Could you clarify that for me, please?
Yes, sir. It's the worst case scenario.
That's the worst case. So worst case, we would hit 50% in 2023.
Correct.
Your projection, at least from what these numbers say.
Yes.
Okay.
And I will be updating these each month when we get the sales tax in. So.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's incredible. Pam is working with moving parts all the time. And I much appreciate this because it's incredible. Okay, so we have, we're gonna have our work cut out, but I think it's probably the most important thing that needs to be done. So, let's see, that was the update on revenue and expenses. We have a very brief update on Town Square. I think, Bob, you were gonna cover that. And if, in light of, again, what we've needed to cover, it's almost 9 now. So if we have the information, if we need to do that in more detail at another point. I mean, I'd like for us to get through the agenda today. But go ahead, Bob, you can start that and give us an overview, possibly. If more is needed later, that can happen.
Sure, I'll be glad to, Madam Chair. Pam provided a couple of different documents which were discussed at your last meeting. Some information that had been actually developed by former Alderman Fred Malin Smith, some analysis on the prior spending. And then Pam also provided an updated Town Square expense. Obviously, we have not had any recent expenditures. We have withheld the $303,775, $303,000 until they completed some work. Actually, some of that work is going on this week. The very, very final work we've had in the recent weeks, some tree replacement and landscaping. We've had some concrete repair work that our staff had identified was subpar. And then we've had these bioretention ponds rebuilt. And so we'll wait for a good rain to be sure that they are functioning properly. And then the board will be asked to release that final $303,000. And then basically our agreement with Brinkman Constructors for that project will be complete. So that's where we are on the Town Square work and expenses. And all that information has been provided by Pam in via email.
And those walked over there yesterday, and that new landscaping and the bioretention areas, there's maybe 1 or 2 places that still need some work done, but for the most part, they look very nice. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see when it rains. So I think that's going to happen next week. Okay, so, and you all have the document then that shows the very, and again, that was from former Alderman Malin Smith on the specific change orders and how that all happened. I think this is, if there are no very brief questions, is there a brief question? Anyone? And
I've got a couple of questions, but I'll call Pam and ask her.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. We can do that. And also at our board meeting coming up, and well, at the prior board meeting, Alderman Benegas has asked for some updates on the usage of the Brinkman building, and you could probably get that information if you go online and hear our board meeting on Monday. So, okay.
You could also make a report to this committee because of this subject that's on this agenda. You can make a report to this committee since you'll be at the Monday meeting about what was said at the meeting. Okay.
Okay, we'll do that.
I think John Benegas asked that Bob Brinkman appear at the meeting, right, to discuss.
I believe he did, and I haven't heard. We got our packet yesterday, Bob. I haven't seen it yet, Bob.
Yeah. So because we have the audit presentation at the board meeting Monday night, we've asked Mr. Brinkman, and he has agreed to appear at our first meeting in July, and give an update on leasing.
Okay.
But we will provide the board with the information we've discussed here prior to that.
Yes, and we'll provide Ways and Means with that information. So we'll do a good circle of information there.
Okay, good.
Okay, so that was update. Property tax rate. Bob, you want to go ahead and cover that? And we talked about, again, kind of a lot of the next few items on the agenda could have very in-depth conversations. So this is going to be a first look. And again, I appreciate all of your work, everyone on the commission, because we got a lot of work ahead of us. So let's talk about the property tax rate, Bob.
I believe Pam said we need to set that in July, Pam? You could,
In August. So the first, the public hearing and the first reading of the property tax rate, I believe will be August 24th. So any discussion that this committee would like to have regarding that rate prior to then, I just wanted to give everybody kind of a heads up as when that needed to be done. The tax rate has to be all approved by the board and to the county by October 1st.
Okay, any questions on that? Randy? Okay, hold on, Randy, you're still muted. There, you're on. Okay.
Pam, is there any concern about still maintaining a zero property tax rate given the current situation? Is there any concern that you might have? Is that remaining zero?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite catch the question.
My question is, Pam, if the property rate were to remain zero, would that be of concern to you in the next 2 years, given the current situation? I mean, should we be talking about this at all, or you're comfortable with it being continuing to be zero?
I think we need to. I think it certainly is one of the options that we need to discuss as a potential revenue enhancement. It is one way that we can increase our revenues, obviously. But it is one option and one that is, I think, viable, but it certainly has its pros and cons.
So we need to discuss this at our next meeting, right? Whenever that
Yes,
is.
we will. Yeah.
Which has to be pretty soon, actually. because of the debt.
Well, yeah, I think we'll do that. Jeff, did you have a question?
I do. Pam, if we were to take this path, what would the revenue be on some percentage, 0.5% or 1%? What kind of revenue?
0.5% when I calculated this the last time, and it doesn't have the, of course, we don't have the new assessed value yet from the county. But I calculated on 0.5 cent would bring us almost $500,000 a year into the general fund. I'm sorry, yeah, into the general fund. If we went to 1 cent, of course, it would be double that. It would be about 900,000 and et cetera.
1 cent or $1?
1 cent per, yeah, so it's 1 cent. So if you were looking at, hey, I'm sorry, I'm looking off the side because I'm looking at my spreadsheet. But say if you were looking at 1 cent of property tax, if your house value was 660,000, that would be about $125 a year.
Well, Pam, you need to give us, when we have this discussion, you need to give us a schedule that shows this is what these various increased values are worth, okay?
Yeah, I can do that.
We've had that kind of information in the past. We just haven't had it in the last couple of years because we really haven't needed to consider an increase in the property taxes.
Right, and also what the impact would be on the property owner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yes.
And does it only affect residential or does it also affect commercial?
Well, that would be a decision because you can have a different property tax rate on different types of properties. So in that estimate, I was assuming that it would be on residential, commercial, and personal property. But it doesn't have to be the same rate for each one of those.
What would happen if we decided to have a tax next year, but things got better during the year? And number one, we realized we didn't need it for 2022, or maybe we even had an excess in 2021. Would there be any, I guess if we had no tax in 22, we would just have a vote like we would do, the Board of Aldermen would vote again at the end of next year. But what if there's excess next year? Is there anything to refund property owners surplus?
I don't know how we would do a refund. I think obviously the easiest thing would just be to lower the rate the next year. As for a refund, that's something that we would have to work through the county, but I'm unaware of a process at this point for that.
Are we only allowed to change the rate every 2 years? Is that right?
No,
Yes.
we
Yes,
set it
that's
every
correct.
year.
Set it every year?
Right, you can't increase it in an assessment year. Pam, I
Right.
think, I apologize, Madam Chair, for the interruption. I've got to sign off, but I think, Pam, if you would, in the materials that Oz requested regarding the property tax and the various revenue impacts, if you would reflect that out over the 2-year cycle so that it shows when it can be increased and then when it can't, it could naturally be decreased in the following year so that we have both the economic impact and the timing.
I can do that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Have a great weekend. And we'll continue. And
appreciate it.
again, thank you, sir. We have very good discussions. I think the 2021 budget will probably have to be a bit skinny. So, if we have to go back to some previous year spendings and look very closely at what we want to have and what we have to have, and some of those nice things that we've had along the way, it's just like finally when we went out to dinner somewhere, it was a much more special dinner going out than any other time prior to this circumstance. I think maybe our residents will, and most of us are starting to appreciate some of those, at this point, we'll call them luxuries, but just some of those normal activities that we've been able to have. So I would assume from what my expectation of 2021 budget will be, then that and it'd be nice to call it extra revenues, but however we come up with some revenue enhancements could easily be reabsorbed into moving us back to where a lot of the citizens want us to be. Not that we'd be flushed with money by any means. And I think it's a good time to reassess a lot of our priorities. So, okay.
Thank you,
Let's
Madam
see.
Chair and members of the committee for your leadership and direction for the city. We greatly benefit by it, and thank you for your service. I'm signing off. Bye now.
Thanks, Mayor. Take care. Okay, so I don't see any other comments on that. Let's go to Pam, the 2021 budget preparations. You want to briefly outline that?
Right. I just wanted to let everybody know that we will be starting the budget process mid-July. That's when I send the guidelines out and the worksheets out to the department directors. So August is kind of a big time that the departments will be working on their budgets. I'll be doing a preliminary the revenue projections, everything, requesting that the departments have their budgets complete by August 14th. And then we will start to work on them. So we will obviously get the Ways and Means Commission meeting we'll have to have one in mid-August, even if we do one in July, to start talking about the budget. So just wanted to give just a quick startup on, we finished the audit, now we're ready for budget.
Okay, and again, we have work to do prior to that point. So I think that we'll be meeting before mid-July or whenever, but that's to be determined. Okay. All right, Bob, we talked about revenue enhancements. You want to go ahead and maybe move forward with that?
Yes, so thank you, Madam Chair. And just to kind of follow up, obviously Pam will be putting together some scenarios on property tax. Ryan Spencer, who's also on this meeting, our city planner, has begun researching area cities and what their revenue sources are, just so we can provide some information to this committee, what our peer cities have in the way of various fees, taxes, so we can get an idea of what's going on around us. And basically just going to be putting together various information and options to present to this committee at your next meeting.
Okay. And there are issues that again, just to comment on, I know Pam and Bob are aware of a lot of the things going on within the municipal league and just kind of what, how they continue to oversee and watch for us. But there are some things like a Wayfair issue, some means that certainly are, I'd say our wonderful people in Jefferson City that could impact us as a municipality. And with some work and things, we're real close to being taken care of, I believe, this year. Hopefully it moves forward next year. The COVID really, we had some work going on with a couple issues and things were just shut down. So that could be we could be very lucky, as with all the other municipalities, if some things are moving forward at the state level. So those are things we don't have control of, but we certainly, as residents and citizens, and people should know who their state reps and senators are, because that's a big deal for us as a city. All right. Any comments with that? And I hope I didn't say too much on that, Bob.
You're fine.
Okay. Okay, Ryan, you want to cover the economic update?
Yes, ma'am. Very, very quickly. It's somewhat of a mixed bag. As was alluded to by Pam, a number of businesses have vacated in the past few months, and I suspect that'll continue through the end of the year. Gold's Gym, we're all aware of. Also, Bright Idea Toys near Schnucks has vacated their space. Three Dog Bakery is going to vacate their space. Look After Salon, Orly's Boutique. So some of these smaller businesses, we could see that continue probably through the end of the year. In terms of commercial permits, we're still down, obviously. For example, in terms of commercial mechanical permits, last year we did 37 permits for $17,000 in value. So far this year, $730. So kind Commercial remodels last year, 65 issued, $178,000 in value. That's indicative of a businesses investing in their space or new tenants moving in. So far this year, 18 permits issued at 64,000. In terms of residential single family, we're still on the same pace as last year. That's not impacted by the current environment. We should do somewhere around 25 new homes, and these homes are, $1 million to $2 million in value. So these are significant investments. In terms of new projects on the horizon, Covenant Presbyterian Church is going to be submitting today for a new school addition onto their facility. They currently have a school in their basement. They're going to be building a larger facility for them. So that's something they want to take action on this year. So that hopefully there'll be permits forthcoming. Principia continues to work on their Fieldhouse project and athletic improvements. So that's a significant investment. The Roger Riney office building in Flushing Meadows that had been for sale for quite a while, recently sold to a cloud computing company. That's 47,000 square feet of office space that'll soon be occupied by a new business. So those are just a few of the economic updates I have this time.
Okay, any questions? This would be a great time, I would have been. Now people are starting to get out more, but it seemed like if somebody wanted to remodel, if their stores were empty, it would have been a good time. So anyway, okay, thank you for that. Because we finally moved the Brentwick CID through the board, and it had been an update at the end of our last meeting. I just asked for Pam to comment. Brentwick ended up using less money, and again, Pam had in the interest portion of her earlier statement that we would have the interest from Brentwick in December, January time thing. Do you want to give that exact information, Pam?
Sure. The loan to Brentwick ended up being $168,827. So that'll be paid off over a 5-year time frame. The interest the first year should be $5,908, and we will receive that. And of course, the principal payment will be collected as an assessment and get that through the property tax bill that the county sends out. So we should start receiving those in December and January.
Okay. Any questions on that? All right, thank you. Oh, I don't know. Is Randy, you don't have your hand. Okay. All right. And then I did ask Bob to kind of circle around with this public infrastructure task force, because during those meetings, which I think went on at least about over a span of a year, there were really great discussions that kind of, in my opinion, have been taken to a halt because of where we are now. So we'll need to reassess, not forget that information, but certainly it will have to be set aside. But good points to be made. Can you cover that, Bob?
Sure, Madam Chair, as you co-chaired that with Alderman Ryan Mortland, and he's the chair of the Public Works Commission, the committee, the task force on the public infrastructure, basically looked at all of the city's assets, all of our property, all of our buildings. Pam and her group did a full listing of all vehicles, any equipment we had. And then they also looked at where we're spending, what we spend on stormwater, what we spend in parks, what we spend, and started to develop some priorities, basically looking at, again, it's a recommending committee, but looking at what impacts the most number of people. We had input that some residents would enjoy sound walls or sound abatement. So they were in the process of developing some recommendations to forward both the Ways and Means and the board. And I think the meeting was late February, early March, our last meeting. So we're going to get those recommendations, get that committee to reconvene and make their final recommendations, which I think will be beneficial.
Okay, thank you, sir. Any questions, comments? I don't see any.
Just a question
Oh, okay.
about committees. Has the committee been appointed yet for the is it the EMT deal regarding?
Yes, the mayor, our last meeting identified a first look at the task force members, and then the next chair of Ways and Means and the next chair of Police and Fire and Emergency will be the co-chairs of that task force. And I'm not sure, I'm assuming we all had to get sworn, we all were sworn in this week. And so it will be when the chairs of those commissions will be reported. I'm assuming that task force will start work because there's a lot to do. And by December 31st, we need to let the West County Fire and EMS know what our intent is. Does that cover it, Bob? Kind of.
Yes.
Are you planning on leaving us as chair, Sue?
Well,
You talk about next year.
no, I do hope, and my oh my gosh, looks like my iPad's ready to die. So if it dies, I'll let Bob finish this, but I would like to continue to chair this. So we'll see what the announcement is, but I hope to be on. So any other questions, comments? I see none. Okay, we've covered a lot in an hour and 20 minutes. Oh, Randy?
Make a motion to adjourn.
Randy? You're okay, Randy, you're on now.
There you go.
Okay, I'm assuming that there'll be eventually a time that the format of these meetings will go back to live meetings in the rooms at the municipal center. I mean, it's not going to continue to Zoom forever. Do you have any comments about that? I just find it difficult. I feel there's more ease of meeting in a room together, or if the format's going to remain, or it's supposed to change back.
Okay, I got some of that. I think it was something about getting back to normal.
He wants to know when we go back to normal.
Right.
I had the same question.
When I was sworn in a couple of days ago, they had the chairs, and Bob and Ashley showed me, and we were in the chamber. There are chairs spread distanced apart. Maybe there were like 8 or 10 chairs, and then a board, and so I don't know the answer for where the building will be as far as totally reopening. It seems like we could potentially, and I like face-to-face. I mean, this gets us through this time, but it doesn't compare to body language and everything else, and seeing everybody at the same time. So I know at this point you're supposed to wear a face mask when you're at the municipal center. There is quite a bit of space in the chamber that could be done. So let's leave that to Bob. Will you have any sense of when we can reopen that?
So currently, Madam Chair, since the number has been relaxed, so we can now have more than 10 people. That was our prior restriction. the 6-foot spacing is our current barrier when we try to set up a room and have each person 6 feet apart. It's difficult to get a committee and have room for an audience, but we will begin to look at that. I would think at some point we would have some relaxing of the 6-foot spacing. And then obviously once that takes place, we're good to go. But we will look at the potential to have ways and means at a 6-foot spacing and room for the public.
And there could be some people in the workroom too, right, for some of the staff for, but yeah, I know that those plans are in motion. So, all right, thanks everyone for.
You have a hand up, Madam Chair, from Randy again.
Okay, go ahead, Randy. You're still muted. There, you're on.
Good suggestion of being in the chambers might be a good one then, where she could sit at the podium and then we could sit face apart out in the audience. And that, to me, that would be a viable alternative. It's a suggestion. I think that's a good idea.
Okay, and I didn't get that. Do you have a response to that, Bob? Okay, Bob, did you hear that?
I think she was saying we could meet in the council chambers. We'll look at our
Yes,
options.
we will. Okay, I would
move we adjourn.
Thank you, Mr.
Second.
And a second. Thank you, everyone, and have a great weekend. We're adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.